What if the world you know never came to be? What if the fragile peace had shattered just once? Picture it. The year is 1983. Welcome to IfVerse, where imagination meets reality. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your own what-if idea below. A world on edge. The air is thick, not with promise, but with suffocating tension. On September 26, 1983, a Soviet satellite warning system reports the launch of American missiles. In our history, a lone officer, Stanislav Petrov, saved the world. But what if he hadn't? Two colossal giants, the United States, the Soviet Union, they glare at each other across a geopolitical chessboard. Fingers hover over buttons that could unleash unimaginable fire. Every headline, every whispered rumor, every military drill feels like a dress rehearsal for the end. This isn't history from a dusty book. It's a living, breathing nightmare, a powder keg waiting for a spark. Imagine the daily hum of anxiety. In American suburbs, children practice duck and cover drills. In Soviet cities, citizens listen to state-run news. The world is a web of tripwires. A skirmish in Afghanistan, a protest in Poland, a submarine disappearing beneath the Arctic ice. Any could be the catalyst. The arsenals are beyond comprehension. Thousands of warheads, each one a sleeping dragon, capable of turning cities into glass and poisoning the very soil for generations. Peace held by the terrifying logic of mutually assured destruction. If one side strikes, both will be annihilated. This razor's edge is where our story begins. Not with a calculated decision for war, but with a simple, terrifying mistake. A glitch in a machine. A misinterpretation on a radar screen. On September 26, 1983, a Soviet satellite warning system reports the launch of American missiles. A lone officer, Stanislav Petrov, faces a choice that could rewrite human destiny. In our history, he trusted his gut, dismissed the alert as a system malfunction, and saved the world. But what if he hadn't? What if protocol, fear, and the immense pressure of the moment had guided his hand to report an incoming attack? The chain reaction would have been immediate, irreversible, absolute. The gears of war, once set in motion, are impossible to stop. A report of an American first strike would trigger a Soviet launch-on warning response. There would be no time for verification, no room for doubt. The first tremors of the storm would not be nuclear. They would begin with the grinding of tank treads and the roar of jet engines over the heart of a divided Germany. The Fulda Gap, a stretch of rolling hills and farmland, was the designated flashpoint, the place where NATO and the Warsaw Pact had stared each other down for decades. In our alternate timeline, as the sirens of a supposed American nuclear strike blare across the Kremlin, the order is given: forward. The sleeping giant of the Soviet military machine lurches into motion, its primary objective to overwhelm Western Europe before the full scale of the nuclear exchange can unfold. Imagine the chaos of that morning. German farmers awaken not to the crow of a rooster, but to the earth-shaking rumble of thousands of Soviet T-72 tanks pouring across the border. They are a steel tide, their cannon barrels pointed west. Above them, swarms of Mi-24 Hind helicopter gunships blot out the rising sun, their rocket pods ready to spit fire at any sign of resistance. For the American and West German soldiers stationed there, it is the moment they have trained for their entire careers, a nightmare scenario made real. The air crackles with panicked radio transmissions as outposts are overrun, their desperate calls for reinforcements swallowed by the cacophony of war. The initial NATO response would be fierce but overwhelmed. The strategy was never to win a conventional war, it was to hold the line. M1 Abrams tanks, German Leopards, technologically superior but vastly outnumbered, engaged the Soviet spearhead in brutal, close-quarters combat. A 10 Warthog aircraft would scream overhead, their 30mm cannons tearing into Soviet armor with a terrifying roar. But for every tank destroyed, 3 more would seem to take its place. The battlefield would become a scrapyard of burning metal and shattered lives, the green fields of Hesse turning black with oil and blood. This conventional onslaught becomes the terrifying overture to the main event. In Washington, D.C., the National Military Command Center is in a state of pandemonium. Reports of a massive Soviet invasion of West Germany confirmed their worst fears, seemingly validating the initial, and false, reports of a Soviet-verse strike. The logic is inescapable. If the Soviets are launching a full-scale ground war, they must have already launched their missiles. The pressure on the American president would be immense. With his European allies being overrun and the spectre of incoming warheads looming, the decision to retaliate in kind would feel not like an option, but an inevitability. The final domino was about to fall. The moment the final order is given, the world holds its breath for the last time. From silos hidden beneath the plains of North Dakota, from silos hidden beneath the plains of Wyoming, massive concrete lids slide open, revealing the terrible promise within. A deafening roar shakes the bedrock. The first Minuteman prayer ICBMs ignite. They climb into the stratosphere on pillars of white-hot fire. From the crushing depths of the Atlantic, from the crushing depths of the Pacific, Trident missiles breach the surface, launched from Ohio-class submarines. The sky begins to fill with deadly stars, each an arrow aimed at the enemy. On the other side of the world, the same apocalyptic scene unfolds. From the frozen wastes of Siberia, from the steppes of Kazakhstan, SS-18 Satan ICBMs begin their deadly ascent, some carrying multiple warheads. The sky over Eurasia becomes a tapestry of exhaust trails. For 30 minutes, the world watches in suspended silence. Then the impacts begin. First targets, command and control centers. First targets, enemy missile silos. A blinding flash over Omaha. Nebraska vaporizes SAC headquarters. Another flash erases a command bunker outside Moscow. Second wave, naval base Norfolk is struck. Second wave, naval base Murmansk is struck. Second wave, airfields in England are hit. Second wave, airfields in Poland are hit. Second wave, troop concentrations along the front in Germany are hit. Each explosion is a miniature sun. Mushroom clouds billow tens of thousands of feet. Finally, the warheads fall on cities. New York vaporizes. London vaporizes. Paris vaporizes. Moscow vaporizes. Leningrad vaporizes. Kiev vaporizes. One by one, the great centers are wiped away, leaving craters of molten glass and raging firestorms. There are no victors. Only the dead and the dying, and survivors staring at a permanent bruised red sky. The war was over in an hour, but the suffering had just begun. The last mushroom cloud dissipates, but it does not leave a clear sky in its wake. Instead, it leaves a legacy. The immense firestorms that consumed the world's cities have lofted millions of tons, soot, dust, debris high into the stratosphere. This dark shroud begins to spread, carried by the jet streams until it forms a uniform, globe-spanning layer of grime. It hangs there, a funeral veil for a planet, blocking the life-giving rays of the sun. The vibrant blue marble of space becomes a dull grey orb. On the surface, the day is reduced to a perpetual twilight, a dim, freezing gloom. This is the beginning of the nuclear winter. Temperatures plummet. Within weeks, the global average drops by degrees that would normally take an ice age to achieve. Summer is cancelled. As the surface world freezes under a sunless sky, humanity's only hope for survival lies beneath the earth. These are not the quaint backyard bunkers of popular imagination, but vast government-built complexes designed to house the elite, the military command, essential personnel. Cheyenne Mountain, Yamantau. Once top-secret nerve centers, now humanity's last arcs. They are self-contained worlds, powered by nuclear reactors, stocked with enough food, water, air filtration systems to last for years or even decades. Life in these subterranean sanctuaries is a strange mix of military discipline and quiet desperation. There is no day or night, only shifts. The social order is rigid. Engineers are royalty. Doctors are saints. Soldiers guard the steel doors separating life from the frozen wasteland. However, not all shelters are created equal. Smaller, improvised sanctuaries take root. The London Underground, the Moscow Metro. Platforms become living quarters. Maintenance tunnels become storage. New societies in the dark. They rely on scavenging runs for supplies. The psychological toll is immense. Claustrophobia, depression, the absence of sun, wind, rain. Children are born to concrete and steel, knowing the sky only from faded photographs and wistful stories. These underground communities are lifeboats and prisons. The question on everyone's mind is not if they can survive, but for what? What world awaits them if they ever emerge? On the frozen surface, a different kind of society begins to form, born not of careful planning but of brutal necessity. They are the scavengers, hardier, more desperate, haunting skeletal cities, where every can, every bottle, every intact wall is life. Over time, the most ruthless and charismatic rise, scavenger kings. They rule factories and car parks, command loyal gangs with currencies of gasoline, antibiotics, ammunition, food. Vehicles are cobbled from scraps, weapons from pipes and leaf springs. Knowledge is magic. Read a map, purify water, repair a simple engine, worth more than a dozen guards. Territory is everything. Warehouses, wells, dams, worth fighting and dying for. Alliances are temporary, betrayals common. As years bleed into decades, survivors coalesce into factions. The enclave, continuity, from great bunkers, order, purity, control. The freeholds of the surface, radical self-reliance, adaptation. The children of the atom, worshippers at glowing craters. 50 years on, the shroud thins. Light returns, temperatures creep up. Perpetual twilight brightens to weak daylight. The slow thaw. Ice retreats. Rivers flow. The world is reborn, but strange. Mutant grasses, bioluminescent fungi, altered animals. For subterraneans, steel doors creak open. Scouts report brighter skies. Geiger counters still crackle. A generation born in darkness steps into sunlight, pale, unsteady, but the future. Emergence does not bring unity. Enclave versus freeholds, skirmishes over ruins, salvage, water, dams. New cities of scrap, markets in stadiums, music from pipes and steel. They learn, at the cost of everything, it must never happen again. As the new societies of the 22nd century take their first tentative steps, they live among the ghosts of 1983. Skeletons in cars on ruined highways, diaries in buried homes, and shadows, permanent outlines of people and objects seared onto walls by the atomic flash. These spectral forms are a silent testament. The history of the Great Fire becomes a central pillar, a cautionary tale taught to every child. They study the Cold War not as politics, but as collective madness, a global psychosis to build instruments of suicide. Reagan, Andropov, names spoken with mythical dread, nationalism, ideological purity. The lines we draw on maps and in our minds are not worth the price of annihilation. In the ruins, a new global consciousness is born. Factions still fight, but share one understanding: it must never happen again. An unlaunched missile is found in a silo. They do not see a weapon to be used, they see a demon to be dismantled. The knowledge to build such weapons becomes forbidden law, pushed to a new dark age, and yet enlightened in ways the old world never was. We are left with this ghost of a world, an echo of a history that thankfully never was. It serves as a stark, terrifying warning how close we came, how a single glitch, A moment of panic, a failure of empathy could have plunged us into that long winter. 1983 may seem distant, but its phantoms are still with us, in political tensions, in new weapons, in our capacity for fear and division. The story of the day the Cold War exploded reminds us, the future is not guaranteed. Fragile peace is only one bad decision away from becoming a memory. So, what do you think? Could this version of reality ever exist? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. You've been watching IfVerse, where imagination becomes reality. If you enjoyed this What If, tap like, hit subscribe, and join us next week for another mind-bending possibility.